Hello, my name's Robert Barr. I'd like to talk to you about living the Great Commission. A lot of church members feel their church should be winning souls and making disciples, but their church doesn't seem to be doing anything. The fact is, the church is no longer the center of the community, and people are no longer attracted by the church building. The church has found church-based programs no longer attract those who are not connected to a church, and have discontinued most of their programs to reach them. Only 20% of churches have any program to reach those outside the church, and most of them are no longer active. Only about 1% of churches have an active program to reach those outside the church. The fact is, the vast majority of those outside the church visit the church at the invitation of the church member. Yet few churches encourage their members to invite others. Our society has become very isolated, and most neighborhoods are little more than bedroom communities where people retire at night. Most are separated from workplaces and shopping areas. In the past, people lived in close communities and people knew their neighbors. In addition, they worked and shopped nearby, so they were in regular contact with those who lived around them. Now neighbors rarely meet their neighbors or talk to them. They rarely see them at work, at school, or while shopping. Members feel strange visiting their neighbors, let alone inviting them to church. Yet God came to save them as well as you, and many will never attend a church or hear the gospel unless a church member reaches out to them. Our society gives us the impression that most people are hostile to the gospel and churches. But the fact is, the vast majority have had no contact with the church and see no reason to attend. Many are lonely and isolated and would like to participate in a small group of neighbors. In addition, many are facing tremendous struggles and feel like life is overwhelming. They could use encouragement and support. The church could offer that if it was truly what God called it to be, but unfortunately, most are not. Many churches have been affected by the growing isolation of members, have little practical fellowship with each other. Many churches have dropped their fellowship activities, and most members don't see each other outside of Sunday morning. Many churches have reverted to the old temple-style worship, where members go to church to worship, pray their tithes, and get blessed by the priest or pastor with some word of wisdom. They don't know each other well and are afraid to share with each other when they face trials. The primary need is for members to become disciples. A disciple is one who follows in the footsteps of the master. They do that by learning how to live their faith in their everyday lives. Jesus didn't come to give us a new set of laws or a new set of beliefs. He came to show us a better way to live and to break down the barrier that separated us from God so that we could walk with him. By experiencing God's love and living it in our daily lives, it helps us build strong relationships with each other. Church member cannot learn to live the way Jesus showed us simply by listening to a sermon once a week, any more than a child can grow into a mature adult by listening to his parents lecture him once a week. A child learns to be an adult by watching his parents. A boy learns to be a man by watching his father, and learns how to treat women by watching how his father treats his mother. He also learns what to look for in a wife by watching his mother. The girl learns how to be a woman from her mother and how to treat a man by how her mother treats her father. She also learns what to look for in a husband by watching her father. With both parents working, parents spend very little time with their kids, and kids get very little time to observe their parents. That is why we have so many broken families and so many people confused about their identity. Many people today cannot build strong relationships or a strong marriage because they've never seen one. The same is true for Christians. They cannot build a strong faith because they've never seen one. Many church members attend a church their whole life and never develop a mature faith. As members grow in spiritual maturity, their lives will be transformed into what God wants it to be, and they will want to share that with others. Up until the 1960s, many members lived close to the church and worked and shopped in the neighborhood, so they had frequent contact with each other, and their churches had a lot of activities where they could meet. As a result, they built strong relationships where they felt comfortable sharing freely with others. However, as members have become more widely dispersed and commute further to work and to shop, many do not get to church beyond Sunday morning and rarely see each other at work or while shopping. They don't develop close relationships where they feel comfortable sharing their struggles. As a result, members are not able to help each other with their struggles, and word doesn't get back to the pastor so he can minister to them. In addition, members don't have frequent contact with the pastor and don't feel comfortable going to the pastor with their problems, and they end up struggling alone. Many churches feel they're failing if they have to share a pastor with other churches. But the church has been most effective when it's served by traveling pastors and overseen by deacons. The early church consisted of house churches overseen by deacons, where lay leaders and the apostles traveled from church to church preaching. Christians were trained in the faith of their local church, and those outside the church were attracted to it by the love they saw in the group. During the Great Awakening and other revivals, many were attracted to the faith, but were not welcome in the established churches. As a result, they established house churches. There are few pastors, and so the available pastors served as circuit riders, traveling around to the churches. Each house church was served by a lay leader. When the settlers went west, there were no churches, so circuit riders were appointed to evangelize the people and establish churches. The church today can help by developing small group ministries where the pastor trains deacons to oversee the groups. Small groups provide a sheltered group where members have frequent contact with each other and develop close relationships where they can feel free to share their struggles. The group members help the struggling members, and if the problem is bigger than they can handle, the deacon can help or refer it to the pastor if needed. However, many churches today do not want to establish small groups. Either they enjoy the power they hold over the church and are afraid of losing it, they take pride in their building and don't think it will be used fully, or they feel the people aren't interested and don't offer them the opportunity. Whatever the reason, they don't establish small groups, and the church continues to suffer. Many members are frustrated because they aren't able to establish relationships with others in the church, and they feel isolated. Many members today leave their church because they don't feel like they are a part of the group, and they seek a church where they can become a part of the church. Some find other churches where they can be a part of the fellowship, but others drop out of church altogether. Many who've dropped out of church tell me they feel more a part of the Eagles or other social groups than they feel in church. Down through the years, many members have started churches. The early disciples were forced to leave Israel due to the persecution and were scattered abroad. However, the apostles stayed in Jerusalem. As a result, there were no churches where they settled. Some of them gathered in their homes for prayer and to study the letters sent out by Paul and the other apostles, and invited other refugees nearby who were believers to join them. Many churches developed from those groups. Many of the settlers who went west found there were no churches there and began to gather in their homes for prayer and to study the scriptures. They then invited their neighbors to join them. When circuit riders arrived, they would establish them as a church and include them in their circuit. I once pastored a church in Ohio that was started in 1816, several years before the first circuit rider arrived in the area. When the circuit rider arrived, he established it as a church. It was the only group around and attracted settlers from miles around. When it outgrew the home where it met, it divided and established a new group at a distance to serve those who came from a long distance where they lived. The group established over 16 new churches before they even constructed a building. Those groups later built buildings of their own to serve their local area. 12 of those congregations were still active churches over 150 years later. Many of those groups were made up of people from a variety of faiths. They had no church of their denomination in their area, and they wanted to belong to a group where they could study the Bible and worship. If your church isn't interested in starting small groups, you can still gather church members who live near you to study the Bible and pray. Or you can visit your neighbors and may find some who belong to other churches who are interested in studying the Bible and praying, because their church doesn't have small groups. They don't have to transfer to their church, to your church. They can still remain in their church and belong to the group. You may also find people who don't have any church connection, but are interested in joining the group. You can encourage them to join your church or seek out a church of their faith once they're ready to seek a deeper Christian faith. We have a large amount of study materials available for small groups. We would be glad to help anyone who's interested in starting a small group. Thank you.